Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And today we will review Taboo episodes 7 and 8, leading us to our season finale. And Taboo has been quite an entertaining show, guys. Some of my favorite shows contain elements of history. And so if it's got anything to do with history, a lot of times I'm going to be on board. So I think that's what's driven Taboo to, one of my favorite shows of the season to watch. And it did end. It apparently we might get a season 2. It's looking like it's shaping up to be that. And I'll be interested in seeing what it does with season 2. Initially, I kind of was a little bit trying to figure out, how this show would end. What I didn't see any good endings with this show, but apparently they've kind of found a way to, you know, um, carry this story on a bit longer, a bit take it forward. So, pretty interesting stuff. I'm gonna hang in there with Taboo as long as they're there. So, anyway, guys, we open up on episode 7 from episode 6, where James is left, or he awakens to Winter's dead body. We know that James had been heavily drinking, and seemingly he had been having these visions, and where he would be strangling people like he did with Zilpha, and so pretty much all the evidence was pointing towards James being the murderer of Winter. Of course, James didn't get much benefit of the doubt in when it came to concerning Helga. Helga basically screams that James is a murderer, and we can kind of, as we go back to, like, even I believe it was like episode 1, the conversation between Helga and James. She's pretty much already determined that James is this type of Jack the Ripper person, and that he's capable of many atrocities. So it's not hard for Helga to make the leap, that James, or come to the conclusion that James is a murderer. Based on the history she's had with James. And so, it gets really bad. Helga even pulls out a gun at a point in the episode, and she fires a shot at James, getting very close to striking him. So not really good. The situation with James is not good. James, doesn't have a recollection of, if he killed Winter or not. It pretty much seems he believes he's capable of it when you take into account his prior visions and things like that. We get Chichester carrying on with his investigation. He actually comes to the Delaney home to seek James's testimony. And, we get to discover that James was on the ship, that he did nail the slaves inside the ship in order to cover up any evidence that the East India Company had been involved with the slave trade. And so Chichester is offering James a pardon, and let him know that he's really after Sir Stuart Strange, and that he only seeks his testimony in court, and that he wants to catch the big fish. We also move on to the situation here with Zilpha and James, and this entire relationship for me, it's been quite confusing. In this scene we get James, he basically breaks up with Zilpha. After all, everything they've went through in the setup, James decides he doesn't want to be with Zilpha, and Zilpha is just devastated. Zilpha doesn't want this. She very much wants to be with James. And, I think what's kind of been confusing about the relationship between Zilpha and James throughout this series is initially, we're under the impression that, Zilpha's trying to either escape her feelings from James, or she's trying to get out of the relationship, or she doesn't want anything to do with him. And it seems like James is the one that's deeply in pursuit of her. And then now throughout the series, we've done all these about faces. We get, Zilpha, who, we don't get much backstory as to, what makes her change her mind about James, or if it was an entire act the entire time. I'm maybe assuming maybe it wasn't just an act, the entire time. But, from what I can gather about why James broke up with her, it could be more than one thing, but, one idea is that James, with his condition, he almost strangled her. He, at this point, believes he's killed Winter. And, we're kind of faced with the idea, is it that James didn't want to be with Zilpha due to that fact that he's dangerous and he may not be fit to be around her, a term he likes to use quite a bit, that he's not fit, to be around certain people at certain times. So is it done to protect Zilpha? But then in that very same scene, as I, really looked at it and was trying to figure out this thing, he does say to her that she can thank her God for his decision. So there seems to be almost a relay of information that James has, taken it, gained some type of moral compass in the matter. Did Zilpha go too far, in murdering her husband? Because he is quite surprised. I also remember that in the episodes that he seemed surprised that she had went through with it, like it was something that was out of the plan. Or I'm even thinking that maybe he felt that she wouldn't actually go through with that, and that she actually surprised him. So it could be a number of those things, could be a combination of those things, but what is clear is that James ends the relationship. We also get that, Brace, their butler, and things like that, it's revealed that, Brace was responsible for poisoning James' father, as a type of mercy killing, as he explains it, because James' father had become very mentally ill, and back in those days, I would imagine that just go ahead and killing you was probably the easiest way to cope with those type things. We got Hilga, who's still very much upset at James about what she believes to be him killing Winter, and so she goes to the East India Company, and it's kind of like this revenge thing playing out, where she wants to make James pay by turning him over to the East India Company, giving up his incriminating him, basically, where he becomes a falls under the act of sedition or treason. And we know if it's determined that he's committed treason, that his Nuka Sound, his private property and things like that, will go to the crown by law, and they can try to come in and possess that. So the East India Company, finally, are kind of doing this early celebration where they feel that they finally have got James Delaney. We also get the East India Company, or Sir Stuart Strange, who goes to meet, with the Prince Regent's, right-hand guy there. His name escapes me for the moment. But basically making a deal that, they're willing to present these witnesses, or Hilga, so that all of this property, the Nuka Sound territory, can pass to the crown. And in exchange, they only want to control the tea monopoly. So, they're making that deal. And so now that the crown knows that, they have these charges against James that can stand, they're sending out troops to have him arrested. Whilst James is being arrested, Lorna finds out that through one of the kids who's used to play with Winter and kind of witness everything, he was able to explain to Lorna that it wasn't James who killed Winter, but it was a gentleman who came in from a boat. They're able to put it together that it was a member from the East India Company, or basically hired by the East India Company. So we find out that James was not the killer of Winter. So James is arrested. He's being tortured. James is able to withstand this torturing through an act of a show of great strength. And, basically with James' past experiences in Africa and all the various things he's been through, he's able to deal with, their means of torture quite easily. So, we can pretty much, tell that James has, been through far worse than what they're putting them up against with their torture techniques. And every time they, they enact one of these techniques, whether it's something like waterboarding or whether it's, some threat of poison or things like that, James is, still asking for Sir Stuart Strange, that he will give them what they want, provided that he gets to see Sir Stuart Strange of the East India Company. So the Prince Regent is starting to get impatient. They're starting to believe James is never going to give them what they want. So they end up granting his request and calling for Sir Stuart Strange, who arrives there, in which James is basically letting Sir Stuart Strange know that I have a use for you, and the episode ends. And that was episode 7. I'm going to go on to episode 8, and then I'm going to give my final thoughts on the season of Taboo. So, we then move on to episode 8. And in episode 8, it starts off really bad for me because we get Zilpha here, played by Una Chaplin, and she's walking on the docks, and she's talking about, how things didn't work out with her and James, but she hopes in another life it will. And so Zilpha commits suicide. And I really didn't like that scene, because I think the character who plays Zilpha, Una Chaplin, is very and I like to see her on screen, and so I didn't like that. And even though the storyline between her and James was quite taboo and very uncomfortable, I really did want to see it go someplace. And in that scene, this seems to be the end of Zilph, and so we didn't get that. So we did pick up with James and Sir Stuart Strange. And so we finally get to see what James is, what use he had for Sir Stuart Strange. And, James is basically presenting Sir Stuart Strange with the fact that he's going to be taken down. Chichester has gathered enough witness testimonies, enough evidence to bring him down for his, participation in the slave trade. And so Sir Stuart Strange is kind of trapped now, so he has to play ball with James. And what James wants is he wants a ship, and he wants this ship in exchange for him not giving a testimony to bring Sir Stuart Strange down. So Sir Stuart Strange is basically, organizing this. This way to get James a ship. They also have to drop all charges against James. So that means they have to release Helga, as the witness that could have incriminated James and made it so that, the crown could get the Nuka Sound territory. And so, so basically, James is released because they don't have the evidence to hold him. He's released. And now he has a ship that the East India Company has provided, and, he's gathering up everybody to get out of there, to sail off to America. So we cut back to the Prince Regent, and the Prince Regent is very unhappy about this development. The Prince Regent has had it up to here. And he basically says, that's it. I don't care about treaties. I don't care about any of that. Just kill him. Just kill him and be done with it. I'm the head of state. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I found that very interesting because all through this series, I was thinking like, wow, it's very interesting, like how something as valuable as the Nootka Sound and a private citizen, having all this power and control over the state, how long they let this play out. I would have thought that, they would have come to this conclusion a lot sooner than this. And I was just surprised that they let James walk around and maneuver the way he did so long. So I found that very interesting. And I just always kind of had that in the back of my mind that, one day they're just going to break treaties and do all these things. We know like that even Hitler did the same thing during World War II, that you can break treaties, when things just aren't going your way. So seems like James is about ready to ship out of there. He doesn't know as of yet that the Prince Regent, they've organized troops to go in and actually stop them and kill them, and James is kind of en route to get everything going, but he does find a letter that Zilpha wrote to him, and it's her suicide letter. And, it seems to, kind of stop James in his tracks. It's almost like James can't even go forward in a sense because, a lot of his plan, well, initially anyway, had to, to do with him getting passage for him and Zilpha out of England. But, all the different developments, whether it was about her killing her husband and not being the person he thought she was, or just trying to protect her, I'm going to have to assume she turned out not to be the person he really wanted to be with, because if he was just trying to protect her, I think he would have still tried to, find a way. Or maybe I'm wrong. I guess we'll never really figure that out. But, in any event, it takes kind of Lorna to get James, back on track, to let him know that you got a lot of people depending on you, a lot of people who have to get out of here, that the crown's coming for us. And, James, gets everything together. They're headed to the docks, and his butler Brace is still around. And, we know that Brace had, basically admitted that confessed that he killed his father. And so James basically, is not going to take Brace with him. And we find out that, he gives this very interesting line to the effect of, Brace, you're not coming with us, you're going to stay here. He gives him the house and the land, and he lets him know that you can't come with us because if you had freedom, you wouldn't know what to do with it. Brace has been a servant all his life. He's always been that person, that person in service, and that person who, I guess in a sense, was never free and would never be able to handle an adventure like that. That world that they're going to is not a world that Brace belongs to. It's a new world, embraced as part of the old world. So also en route, we get James stopping off to see this American spy, the American spy doctor, and his name escapes me as well. But we find out all this interesting stuff about him, that he's a turncoat, that, he was an American spy, but apparently he started working for the East India Company. He was all part of this plan to try to get the uh, territory from James, and he thinks James is there to deliver the nuka sound to him. Little does he know that James has already, presented this evidence to where the East India Company had to release him, and get him a ship, and so James ends up, killing this American, spy, and basically draping him in the American flag and red and blue, and it's almost like alluding to he's a fake American, and now that James is the real American, and so he gets this comeuppance, so to speak. So we get this very epic battle sequence. Um, as the Prince Regent's troops arrive, at the docks where James is trying to board the ship. And, he has a full crew, of people who he's promised passage to America for. Helga's there, Helga's shot. Chomley's there. Chomley had been making explosives, and he had been able to hold off the British troops for quite some time. But the explosives kind of explode on him. They kind of backfire on him, so to speak. He's badly injured, and it doesn't look like he's gonna, we're not sure if he's gonna live or die. And so basically, just this exciting action-packed scene. They make it on the ship, but Lorna is actually shot. So they get out of there, but they get out at high cost. And, we get them sailing off to the horizon, and, and basically saying, James quotes that that they are the true Americans now, when basically, and they kind of hoist the American flag, and we see that they're, now, going to the New World. So I just want to give some of my thoughts about Taboo. What I liked about the season, what I didn't like about the season, and what I think season 2 is going to be about. Am I looking forward to season 2? That type of thing. But I really like Taboo. I thought it did a great job. 8 episodes. I wish it was at least like 10 episodes, but it was 8 episodes. But when the show first started, the first few episodes I just thought were awesome, and I was like, this, I'm seeing this is going to be one of my top 5 shows. But it kind of, did this thing where the storyline, I just felt that the way they wrapped up some of the storylines, that they just did it to. We needed a little bit more story going, especially between him and Zilpha. That relationship, how that worked out, that was a very pivotal, part of the show, and I want to see that, play out a lot better than it did. So then, much like that, so in the middle of the season, I kind of started to get, like the first 4 to 5 episodes I thought were awesome, but the last few episodes didn't really like them. Did like the final episode. And, as I said earlier, they just kind of showed me that they can take this show on to a season 2, because I was wondering how they were going to do it. I honestly thought they were going to all pretty much end up dead. James seemingly maneuvered his way out of it, because another reason why I thought they were going to end up dead, because a lot of times when the show first comes on, we see them all just floating in the water. They're just like their bodies are floating in the water, like they're kind of telling the story from an after perspective. That's just my thoughts, how I saw it. But maybe James was floating in the water when during this time in Africa and things like that. But, you know, whatever they were going for there, I thought it was a great show, guys. I really enjoyed doing the reviews, you know, on this show. Um, and if we get a season two, I'll be glad to come back and do a season two review. But anyway, guys, I hope you all have, you know, enjoyed watching Taboo. I hope you all enjoyed the reviews. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, guys, take care.